Alright, it's Friday and Becky's due back tomorrow, Saturday. So we've got a lot of work yet to do, but a lot of the big stuff is out of the way, the kind of complicated things. Now it's just kind of brute forcing our way through the rest of it. So let's take a look and see what we've got. The wall's not changed. It's still sitting here like it was. Electrical current is hooked up to it. What I did do, however, is I took the mirror that was in there and I removed it from the wall, and I went ahead and I constructed a frame for it, and this is going to go in place here. And so I had to chop the mirror down in size, and underneath it then I'm going to use leftover backsplash from the kitchen. It'll go up exactly 12 inches. That's very lucky. And it'll go around it. So it'll create the surround around it so it won't look so roughed in like that. So I'm going to cut the tile now and put the tile in place. In the meantime, I'm going to put a second coat of primer on our window frame, and we'll check in after that. So I'm here in the garage or the workshop, and going through kind of what I have for tile, and Dad and I cut the tile and put it in place last summer, and then my father-in-law Bill and I grouted it. And so one of the things that both my father and my father-in-law have taught me is that you keep stuff from previous projects because you never know when you might use it for a future project. And so this is a good example of why you hold on to stuff. So for example, when I built the mirror, or the frame around the mirror, I had some leftover 1x3s that I used for the for 3 of the edges, and then the bottom where the shelf is, that's actually a leftover piece of wood wall trim, essentially. And where that came from was when we had the wall removed partially between the kitchen and the dining room. I asked the contractors when they did that to save all that wood because it's beautiful wood, and so I saved it, never knowing what I might use it for. And so I used a piece of that. It was exactly the right length for the mirror that I created. And so the same deal holds true with the backsplash. And so I have enough backsplash left over, and so one full length is 12 inches high, one full run. So this is one full run of backsplash, you can see. It's 12 inches high. And so without even having to cut any new tile, although I very much would like to use my newly acquired bridge tile saw that I got from Harbor Freight, but I'll save that for another project. We had a leftover half piece like this that we'd already cut from previously. And then on this end, all I needed was an additional 1.5 pieces here to finish it out. And so I already had those cut from the previous job. So this is going to make this really easy for me because all I need to do, and this is really just dumb luck, because when I cut that mirror into place, I scored it and then I cut it. I scored it and then I along the edges that I wanted, and then I broke it. But of course it didn't break perfectly, and so I actually ended up having to score it and break it, and score it and break it probably 2 or 3 times on each edge in order to get a consistent line. In fact, one edge I do have a little bit of a chip out of it, and that's one of the reasons why I built the frame around it, is to hide kind of the rough edges. And so I had to slot the 1x3s. I cut a channel through the middle of it, essentially using the table saw, and then clean it out with a little Dremel, more or less, to cap those rough edges. And the bottom part was the good side, and that was where I put the shelf on it. But now I can go ahead and I can use my mud that I've got left over from last year, put the tile up, let it start to dry. I've already got the frame around the mirror drying, the paint on that drying, and so this should dry today, and I'll be able to grout it today as well, and get that mirror in place and figure out how I want to hang that. And then I'll run little tile along the edges just to kind of cover up that gap that exists because of that outlet cover that's in there. So we'll go to the mudding stage now. Alright, I got my mastic left over from last year, didn't have to buy anything. And my wall is not really ideal. I mean, normally you would put a special backer on here, or at least clean this up, but again, this is a temporary job for 1 year, and so we'll just kind of see how it goes. But I've already got a line up here. That's my 12-inch mark. It's level. So I'm going to go ahead and put my mastic on, and using my trowel to texture it in there the way it's supposed to be. Then I'm going to go ahead and put the tile in place, and then it needs to dry for 6 hours before I grout it. Luckily it's only about 9 o'clock in the morning, so I can easily grout it later today. And then you can see I'm also going to have to go in and do a line along here all the way to the top, because I don't really want to paint that, so I'll just have I got some extra tile I can do for that. But we'll put this in first, and we'll see how that goes. Now, these little stragglers are all going to go over here on the right. This piece, I've got it all, yep. It's going to go right in here. It's going to go right up to the very edge. So there we are, we're in a pretty good place there. So, like I said, that will dry in 6 hours. I'll run a fan in here to help that out a little bit. And then we'll go ahead and we'll grout it. But in the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to find some tile that should be about half length here that I can put all the way up, or I'll figure out how I'm going to play that out. But that's the last bit of tile work I got to do in here, and then I got to figure out how to hang the mirror, because it's pretty heavy. And I know I've got one stud here, and there may or may not be a stud over here. I don't think there is, but I'll hunt around and see if I can find one. If I can, that'd be perfect. Hang right on those. But so we'll work on that next. All right. Our next job is, well, first of all, I covered up the tile that it laid with newspaper, and I went ahead and I put that primer paint on top of the countertop because it gets sick of looking at that disgusting yellow. But the side here, you can see, is in pretty bad shape. So I went to Lowe's and I bought a 2 foot by 2 foot piece of just kind of thin paneling. It was only a couple dollars. And what I did is I cut it into place, and a 2 by 2 isn't quite big enough, and so I actually had one piece already laying around. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to glue it in place like this, and then have another piece here, and I'm actually going to have a little gap between them, just make it kind of look neat, and I kind of had to anyway. And then I got a quarter round piece, or a trim piece that I had left over from another job that I'll put at the base. So I'm going to glue this in place on here, and then I'll paint it once I've got it glued in place. Since everything around here is white anyway, it doesn't matter, I'll just go ahead and paint it afterwards. Normally I would paint before and then glue it, but this is actually easier just to glue it in place and then go ahead and paint it afterwards. So that will take care of this yucky kind of water damage and make it look a little bit fresher in terms of what the outer covering looks like. So that's our next job. Alright, so we are moving along pretty good right now. I took the newspaper off the mirror, and you can see here is the finished mirror and backsplash. And so what I will need to do later today, once the mastic is set, is I will come through and I'll grout that. And you can see I put some side panels on here. I did end up painting them and then use little brad nails because the glue was not working. So I'm going to just go over it real quickly with another coat of primer once I'm done. And I may or may not put a middle piece in here just on top, like a 1x3, to kind of bring together this, but I haven't decided for sure if I'm going to do that or not. But we're in a pretty good place right now, I think. I actually put another coat on the sink here, just to kind of keep that yellow kind of color down. I put new pulls on the thing there. And I think my total cost right now, again, I was able to use a lot of stuff that I've got, but I think I'm in about $60 or $70. That's mostly paint. It's a spray paint, and then the gallon of paint that I got really is my biggest expense that I've spent. 'Cause everything else I've just been using stuff out of the Trav Restore, otherwise known as my garage. So we're in pretty good shape here. I'm just gonna put together a few more things. I'll put the blinds back up. I thought you might want to see it. Oh, I did paint this too. That was brown. But yeah, we're in a very white position here, and if Becky wants to come through and give it a color, she can. But floor's holding up pretty well. A couple scuffs here and there with just dropping hammers and stuff, but I'll put a little more spray paint down on that when I finish it off. So looking pretty good. Well, Jackson, our project is done. Yeah. We finished remodeling the bathroom on less than $100. Let's see what it looks like. That's what we've got now. Everything's white. Got this nice travertine backsplash. I'm not fully staged here. Let's see. There we go. Now we're better. Okay. Got this mirror now with a shelf on it. Yeah. What do you think, buddy? Think it's pretty nice in here? Well, the most important thing is what Becky thinks. Let's see what she thinks. But I think it looks a lot nicer. All that pink is gone. Covered up by Zinsser 123 primer. It's a job well done, buddy. It is a job well done.